Hello, everybody. My name is Magnus, and welcome to me doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to be showing you how I compare Shining Force 1 characters. If you've looked through my last Let's Play of Shining Force 1, I go over every single character. I also use every single character, and I want to show you how I actually compare them. What things do I use in order to judge those characters, and how do I know how they're supposed to turn out? At least mostly. I also want to use this as kind of a response to the RPG Guy's character comparison that he put out in September of 2018, which I will have linked in the description below. For the RPG Guy, especially if you're listening here, I want to thank you for your Shining Force content. Shining Force is an awesome series, and I really wish that it continued on. Nevertheless, we have these old games that have popped back up in a little bit of popularity, and I want to show people who may be just getting into that game how I compare them, vice how you compare them. This is all my opinion and kind of my information where I'm getting it from, so that everybody can use it, can discuss it, and can enjoy it. This is by no means any type of thing saying that you're wrong, I'm right, but again, this is my own opinion, and as always, your results may vary with your characters as well. If you haven't watched the RPG Guy's video for character comparisons, I do ask that you do so either before or after this video. Again, it is linked in the description below. That way, you know where I'm coming from with my own arguments and my own opinions. I will be using parts of his video, at least what he is saying, word for word, and the context that he's saying it with. That way, it's not unfair to him when we're talking about this. And again, these are opinions, and I would really like a response from you, RPG Guy, if you're listening out there. We will start with how the RPG Guy compares his characters. In the video, he has leveled up each of his characters to level 20, then promoted them, and then got them to level 20 again, or, if they did not have a promotion, brought them all the way up to level 40. Ergo, giving them a total of 40 levels in order to compare them equally, which is a correct way of doing so if you're going to compare your own run-through, and so there's no argument there. He does mention that this is his result and asks for other people to post their results as well. The problem that I have is that later on, he says that he was curious whether this would confirm the Shining Force Central theory or GameFAQs theory. He unfortunately doesn't get into which one is which too much, although the GameFAQs theory, I would assume from my own research and the way that he's saying it, again, this is an assumption from it, may not be correct, is that the Shining Force Central theory may be everybody goes to a specific stat once they're a certain level, and that's what they are. So every Hans at level 20 promoted after being promoted at level 20 will be the same, where the GameFAQs theory may be, hey, those stats are random, or mostly random. And he's saying he's unsure which one, but to be honest, that doesn't matter too much. The reason this doesn't matter much is that the data has already been collected. If you go over to GameFAQs and you look up Character Guide, you're going to find a very specific one that I draw all my data from. This is from Tskisoccer, spelled T-S-K-I soccer. That is linked in the description below as well for everybody else to look at. This has provided enough data to support that level ups are random. To a point. They tend to go towards certain benchmarks for a character at certain levels. So, a character is looking for a certain stat. Let's say, for example, this is not the case, that at level 10 promoted, after being promoted at level 20, Xylo would normally, in the game sense, have 70 attack. If your attack between the levels of 7 and 9 are well below 70, let's say they're at like a 58, you're more likely to see a higher stat gain, so that way you get up to 70 by the time that you're level 10. Now, that doesn't mean you will be at 70 at level 10. That means that that's where your stats are going to go towards. Now, this causes kind of a rubber banding effect with your characters. If they have over that attack, or whatever other stat that you have, they actually may not gain any stats for a while in order to kind of level out your character. But that's not always the case. Sometimes your level ups may bring you well and above, and you'll still keep getting those stats so that your character will end up being better than what is supposed to happen, quote unquote. So we have already seen that everything kind of varies. How Tskisoccer gets their data is they have leveled up every character all the way up to level 20 or beyond so, and we'll get to the level 20 information later, has leveled them up and has essentially save stated before the level up and has taken 10 samples from that level up and has averaged out all of their stats, put it in there, and has also put a number that shows the total highest stat that they've gotten. So, if they got a +3 in HP and a +4 in defense, that's a total of 7. And if that's the biggest overall stat that they've gotten that level, they'll put a 7 over in that category. Also, from previous experience for me, on the cartridge, as well as in a ROM, I've also been able to save before killing a monster, and knowing that I was going to level up, I would attack the monster, kill it, gain a level, and if I didn't like that level up, I'd restart. And after loading, I would more than likely get a different level up. So even on the cartridge or on a ROM, you are able to get these random stats, meaning that there's not really any theories that need to be proven. It's already been proven with this data. So definitely check out Tskisoccer's data below. That way you can see where I am taking my data from. It is a lot of text, but it's an amazing amount of information, and they also go into a lot of the character descriptions and how good they are overall. As a real example of this, I'm going to be showing his Domingo stats at level 40. He mentioned that Domingo ended up leveling up terribly after a while, which I will tell you is the case, and Tskisoccer will tell you is the case. But you can see his stats: 55 HP, 58 MP, 36 attack, 50 defense, and 48 agility. Again, no stat boosters has been used on this character. And I will show you my Domingo at level 28 from my own playthrough. This playthrough is not from my last one. This playthrough is my own at-home casual playthrough. Did not give him any stat bonuses, but he's level 28. You see that his HP is already higher at 57, MP is a little bit lower at 55, attack is at 33, defense is already at 50, and agility is at 41. So, the stats will definitely vary, because I already have a stat that is higher than his Domingo stat, specifically the HP. And I know that more than likely the defense of Domingo will raise in 12 levels going up to level 40, even if the level ups are crappy. As a real-life example, I will show you that a level up can vary in the same playthrough using save states. Again, you could also save your game, reset it, and reload it, and you will probably find different results, or you may find the same result. It depends. So here, you can see Hans' stats is level 1, 14 attack, 5 defense, 6 agility, and 12 HP, right before he goes and kills an enemy. You see that he's at 75 experience. If he does 3 damage here, he'll gain a level. And he does. Amazing, Hans. Thank you. Now gains 40 experience points. You can see I did a save state there. Increased to level 2. Now note what his level ups are. Speed increases by 1, and HP by 1. I load up that save state, as you can see. And unfortunately for me, in my point, I gain the same level up. But if I load it up again, speed is only increased by 1. Further on, we'll show Hans going from level 2 to level 3. He's going to go through and kill this Rune Knight. Good job, Hans. See, archers are good. Dealing 6 points of damage. Gains 40 experience points. You can see my save state. Levels up to level 3. Speed increases by 2. Load up that save state. And speed increases by 1. So you can see that it does vary per level, at least in this example, from level 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 with Hans. Some people use this feature in order to make their characters a little bit more powerful throughout their gameplay. And this is called save state or reset abusing. This is also used during tool-assisted runs, when a computer program takes all of the bad numbers out, puts only the good numbers in for your character, for the randomness of your attacks, your level ups, and everything else, in order to give you the best character and the best run that you can have. Where this really comes into play is during what's called stat spiking. During certain level ups for a character, as you can see in Tskisoccer's data, normally levels 1 through 10 promoted, although some characters can definitely vary. Talking to you, Arthur, at level 16 and beyond, unpromoted. A character will spike up in a stat, gain a huge amount, sometimes up to 11 or 12 in the same stat, randomly. And that can determine whether that character ends up being really good or kind of mediocre or bad. Other characters don't spike in their stats much and are fairly consistent throughout all of their level ups. A good example of this is Pele. You get him fairly strong, and his level ups seem kind of mediocre. You'll get a couple stats here and there, you'll promote him, he'll gain a couple of spikes in his stats, as most characters do in their first 10 levels promoted, but it won't be as much as another character, like Arthur, who is known for all of his stat spikes. Here's an example of a character that spikes in his stats upon a level up. Xylo's going to damage his armed skeleton and gain a level from it, going from level 14 to level 15. He gains a whopping 6 attack and 6 defense, along with 1 HP. This is a huge amount, especially considering that this is beyond levels 1 to 10, where you will typically see higher stat gains. So when you are comparing characters, you need to consider whether their stats level up consistently or if they depend on their stats spiking. So if you're going to consider Pele versus Ernest, would you rather have Pele, who is strong to begin with and levels up consistently but at low points to where he ends up being mediocre good, or take a chance on Ernest, who will tend to spike his stats? However, you don't know exactly where those stats are going to, where he can be mediocre if you're not lucky. Another quality when you're comparing characters that you need to consider is how good were they when you got them, and how long did it take for them to become good. For example, I'm going to be comparing Honoree and Aleph, two of what seems to be the most powerful mages that you get in the game. We will start with Honoree. You receive her in Chapter 2, and although she seems a little bit underleveled when you receive her, especially in comparison to your other mage, Teo, she will quickly gain her levels, as mages tend to do consistent damage, and very quickly she will get spells that damage multiple enemies. In fact, Honoree only has to wait until level 8 until she gets to use Blaze 2, and later on, she will get Freeze 2 at level 13, Freeze 3 level 16, Bolt 1 at level 19, and then after promotion, she'll get Freeze 4 at a total level of 23, and Bolt 2 at a total level of 26. Because of their ability to hit multiple enemies at a time, mages are able to level up quickly, so Honoree will be able to get to her most powerful spells fairly quickly, especially the very powerful Freeze 3, 4, and Bolt 2. And the other part that you have to consider with Honoree is you get her in Chapter 2. You have plenty of battles until you actually acquire another mage, Aleph. And in fact, you have to wait 5 chapters before you actually acquire Aleph. And by that point in time, Honoree should have been leveled up to at least level 20, promoted, and probably has a few more levels beyond that, while Aleph is actually level 16 when you get her. Now you should be thinking to yourself, hey, there should be some sort of trade-off that Aleph has. Well, Aleph has the most powerful spell, Bolt 4. Unfortunately, when she starts off, she has Blaze 2, Freeze 2, Bolt 1, and has to gain 3 levels before she can even get Bolt 2. Although mages tend to level up quicker than your other characters, the problem that Aleph has is that she's competing with at least one other character, Honoree or Teo if you have her, that have their level 3 and level 4 spells more than likely at this point. So you have to wait with Aleph in order to get her most powerful stuff, whereas with Honoree or with Teo, you already have it, and you've had it for a while. Now, you don't have to wait very long to get Bolt 3, total level of 22, so probably level 20, and then promoted level 2. You do have to wait to a total level of 30 before you actually get Bolt 4, meaning that to a single opponent, you're really not going to be doing that much damage until you get up to level 10 promoted, whereas your other characters have already been doing that damage and are able to take out pretty much almost any enemy all the way through Chapter 8. Now, the trade-off with this character that you get late in the game and that you pretty much have to grind in order to get their most powerful spell is Bolt 4 is pretty fantastic. At a range of 3, dealing 48 to 52 points of damage, a little bit less against certain bosses, although at the end game you're not concerned about that. It does a huge amount of damage and can pretty much one-hit KO almost every single enemy on the map. When you compare that to Freeze 4, since we're using Honoree for the example, that does 40 to 50 points of damage, there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy. It's not that much damage difference. You're talking between 8 to 2 from the lowest to max, and you're actually spending about twice as much NP to use that Bolt 4 over Freeze 4. So, is it worthwhile to use Aleph over Honoree? That depends on your playstyle, and you have to consider whether you intend on grinding a character or you don't. For example, in my last Let's Play, I used Aleph, but I didn't give myself much grinding time. I only grinded up for Adam, and ended up grinding up a little bit on Aleph during that time since I was a little bit bored. But even then, I still didn't get to Bolt 4 by the end of the game, so I didn't even get to use that spell, whereas if I would have kept Honoree in my party the entire time, I would have had Freeze 4 for a very long time through the game, and it would have definitely have helped me. But that is up to you. If you want that most powerful spell, you can grind up for it. That's for you to decide. In my opinion, Aleph is not worth it. I would rather use Honoree and Teo instead, because of the effort that it takes for them to become good. It takes almost no effort for Teo to be good, and Honoree, it takes a little bit of effort, but you have the time in order to get there. Aleph doesn't provide you that much time without having to grind, and if you're not looking at grinding in a game, if you compare these characters, Honoree and Teo are definitely better than Aleph overall. And that's one of the things I want to address with the RPG guy. He was considering all of the end game stats. If you compare everybody at the same level at the end of the game, what do they look like? But he rarely considered what it took for them to get there. I say rarely because he did mention it with Hanzo, although I don't really agree with that, but he did mention it was hard for him to level up, so whatever, if he just had a hard time, that's cool. And Adam. Those were the two that he mentioned, but he didn't mention anybody else. I'm sure that even though Aleph wasn't difficult or annoying to, because she can actually do damage, it still probably took a while for her to level up. Overall, I think that endgame stats do matter. You need to hit certain benchmarks in order to defeat Dark Dragon and Dark Soul and all the robots. However, a person's stats during play, during the other 7 chapters of the game, do matter as well. So if they are a beast during that point and they fall off to mediocrity at the end game where they're doing just okay, That's probably better than a character that really sucked or was unavailable during majority of the game and then became statistically just a little bit better than the other ones. I'm going to address a few other points before I continue on to a side point for character comparisons. The difference between a stat should be greater than 2 or 3 or even 4 points in order for a character to consider have an edge in that stat. In most cases, all that's meaning is they do 1 to 4 points of extra damage per attack, in which a character normally will only attack once. Or they take that much less damage. Or they might, especially with agility. Agility is a terrible stat to compare, because agility means that you may go a little bit faster. You tend to go a little bit faster than everybody else, because the turn order is random. So I think that the difference needs to be more than 2 or 3 points in a stat. It needs to be a significant amount. An opponent normally has about 40 defense near the end game. I mean, take Dark Dragon. He has 40 defense. You want to be able to damage that. Well, if a character has 55 attack or 58 attack, you're going to do 15 or 18 points of damage. Yes, the 18 is a little bit more, but in the overall scheme of 250 HP per head, you're not really getting that much more done. Another point to consider is what weapons that a character uses. Sorry, the RPG guy, you ended up making a big mistake. You gave broadswords to the Birdman and the Chrome Lance to Kokichi when you compared them, which is fairly comparable. Their stats are not too terribly different, with the Chrome Lance being at 22 attack and the broadsword being at 20 attack. However, you then equip Kokichi with a Valkyrie and use that as a comparison. The Valkyrie being plus 35 attack and having range, which put the Birdman at a severe disadvantage when you compared them, because the Birdman can have the almighty Chaos Breaker. Believe it or not, they can at plus 40 attack. They can also have the Katana at plus 30 attack. So when you're comparing characters, you either need to compare them using their best weapon, because you're technically possibly using them with the best weapon you could equip them with, or with no weapons at all. That would make a much fair comparison. This definitely matters when you're comparing a character across different groups. So if you're comparing Birdman over to the Knights, it does matter what weapon that they have equipped. Especially if you're equipping a broadsword to Birdman. I mean, that's 10 less attack than what they really should be having. And again, when you're talking a couple of points, other stats should matter more. Other stats, such as movement. Movement is huge in this game, especially the type of movement. 7 move and flying is way better than almost any other type of movement in there. You can bypass obstacles, and you can get out to battles quicker. Imagine going through some of the late game maps with all the forests and all the mountains that you have with your knights, and then compare them to your Birdmen. If your Birdmen have 3 less attack, that's not going to matter. You're going to beat the map quicker, because you can actually get down to the opponent in fewer turns. This game is player phase focused. There's not really any counterattacks. You have some, but you have no influence over it. It's very random. But your turn is where your character matters. Their defense kind of matters, but if you're a smart player, you pretty much set yourself up to where you don't get attacked much. So a highly mobile, little bit less powerful unit tends to be better for you overall, especially if you're not trying to grind out the game and take forever. Matters a lot more than a character that has a little bit better stats. And yes, I'm a little bit biased. I love my Birdmen. However, you take in consideration Blue and Kokichi, they're also fairly good characters because they can go around stuff. They can bypass all those mountains and everything, including Domingo, although he's a little bit less. And the other thing to consider is they actually have less movement than the Birdmen. That's why the Birdmen are a little bit weaker than the other guys. There are also some characters, such as Gunts, that ignore some or all terrain that they move over. So you have to actually consider that when you're comparing characters as well, as that gives them at least some sort of advantage. Overall, I think you need to consider everything about characters and bring all parts of a character up when you're comparing them, whether they depend on spiking their stats, or if they're a very consistent character, what level that you get them, how powerful are they when you get them, when do you get them, how much time do you have to level them up, what weapons they can use, their movement type, all needs to be taken in consideration when you're comparing characters. And the RPG guy, I don't think you addressed enough of that. I know that you addressed a lot of their end game stats, but I think that you could have addressed them a little bit better. And again, that's my own opinion, and that's your comparisons vice what I would do for my own comparisons. Now, the last thing that I want to address for the RPG Guy's character comparison video is his use of the term casual playthrough. I am very confused on how he uses the term, as he uses it in different ways. I don't know if he means that you're going to be able to grind, or if you're just trying to beat it as quickly as possible. Are you allowed to egress, or are you just waiting for yourself to die? I'm not sure, because he kind of takes it in both ways. In my opinion, using examples from other games that are very similar, a casual playthrough allows using egress, allows you to grind out a character, going through a few battles, and generally you're playing just to have fun. You're not trying to meet any challenge or anything else like that. The challenge is you're playing the game. On the other hand, you have what I'm calling an elite playthrough, where you have some sort of challenge set for yourself, such as doing a speed run where you're playing for time, or you're doing an Iron Man run where if a character dies, you don't revive them. They're dead forever. I see this using examples from games such as Fire Emblem, where a casual game, there are ways to actually grind out your characters. You're playing the battles out to their fullest. You're trying to get as many kills as possible. There's sometimes a mechanic that actually allows you to replay certain battles in certain games. Whereas what they call elite players will actually play for something called a lowest turn count, because they actually have turn counts for each battle, and you actually see it at the end of the game how quickly you played those battles, or even speedruns of those games. Now, we don't need the issues that come with casual versus elite players that Fire Emblem community and other communities have, but I think if you're going to use the term a casual playthrough or an elite playthrough or anything else like that in which you use the term casual playthrough, you probably need to explain it and need to make sure that it's used in the same way as others that play the game use it. I definitely think of a casual playthrough as your first time playing the game. You're enjoying it. You're a kid. You're trying to figure out all these different things. You're trying to see what characters do what. So you're testing them all out. And you're like, oh, maybe I want to power this character up because they could become really powerful in the end. Or I want to gain a few more levels before fighting Kane, because, oh, he looks like a tough boss, when generally in this game, you don't need to. If you look through my Let's Play, I may have grinded near the end, but I was using terrible characters. I was grinding specifically Adam. I got a couple of levels on Domingo. I got Tarasu up a couple levels, and Aleph a couple of levels, and Blue up a couple of levels. But I'm saying, 4 levels total that I've grinded in the entirety of the game. You don't need to grind in this game in order to actually win. I could have just left them the way that they were, and my run-through would have been almost the same. Because some characters really just didn't do too much. So, make sure that you're defining what you're saying if you're going to use a term. But I think that you're also getting things mixed up, and some people might be mixed up in that. In conclusion, I want to say that these are my thoughts and my opinions. I present all of this information so that we can discuss it, we can enjoy it, and we can use it to our advantage. I think more knowledge is power. I want to thank the RPG guy again for the content that he has, and request that you give me some feedback. Give me some responses, whether in a comment down below or in a response video. Doesn't matter to me. I would like to hear what you think of my own opinions. And we can all disagree, and that's okay. We have a lot to still learn about this game because it didn't undergo the data mining that current Fire Emblem games or any other tactics games that we've had have done. I mean, there's so much more to learn about this game because it is extremely random. And you can play it however that you want to play it. Play your single player game. It's your game. So if you want to use Adam, go ahead and use Adam. It's going to be rough, but you can do it. He's, an awesome concept of a character. Anyways, my name's Magnus. Thank you for listening. Make sure that you give me a like and you subscribe. Give me a comment down below. Who's your favorite characters? What did I miss? Give me all the feedback that I can, because, again, we all have lots to learn. Anyways, I'll see you next time.